Yeah, we'll just start. I can throw something out there.
Okay.
All right.
Why don't you kick us off?
Me? All right. Hey, Matt. How's it going?
Good. Hey, Michael.
Let's tell everyone it's Shores of Ignorance this time instead of waiting
Ahead of time?
Yeah.
Yeah, right off the bat. Welcome to Shores of Ignorance, episode 7.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we definitely want to hear some of your comments so that we can kind of get some feedback, and we just want to hear what you have to say.
Don't get too desperate.
Oh, dude, you know what I need to do? I need to do that.
Did you hit record?
I just did.
We're experimenting with filming this one.
So I'll just run the the Shores of Ignorance over it, then we can come in.
Okay, nice.
All right, so those are logistics.
So last episode, that was fun.
Yeah,
that was something different.
It was. I still love your question. Like, do we feel qualified to interview Nicole about birth and postpartum and all that kind of stuff? And
I thought it went really well. I definitely did feel the weight of a certain amount of like, I don't know, like I couldn't relate to some of the things, right? And like that was felt very obvious to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that was fun too. Nicole, she said like afterwards that it was really interesting. Some of the things that she sort of takes for granted and maybe even shares with other women. But for us asking her certain questions was actually challenging for her. She was like, oh, I need to think about this in a different way. And so I think she came away with it with a lot too, which was kind of hear the afterwards of it. So
yeah, that's cool to hear.
Yeah, it really was. But it was just really, I'm just so impressed with her, that postpartum group. And I would recommend it to anybody after they've had a baby and just need someone to be around and to talk things through. And it's a really great program.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
They're doing, so.
The other thing I was thinking a lot about since that interview was the somatic experiencing. It really piqued my interest. I ended up getting a massage at some point after, and the whole time that's what I was thinking about as, like different parts of my body, wondering what might be there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like how, like what's stored, like in your shoulders or your back or just, I'd be interested to see that too. So.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, we have David Ramirez coming up, so that's
right.
Gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know him really well.
Yeah. David's one of my oldest friends.
Wow.
I guess counting all of the friends that I still have or that I'm still in touch with. We've known each other for probably 16 years. Okay. Maybe and some change.
Yeah.
We met in the college years. We were both young, eager musicians. And
was this when you were playing the French horn?
I think I'd quit the French horn by the time I met David. Yeah, I quit the French horn like first year of college. I think I met David second year.
Gotcha.
Even though we went to different schools, I was couch surfing at a school in Dallas where he was going to college. So I was playing in a band and driving back and forth between Dallas and Nashville, and we got to know each other then. And then a couple of years later, I had moved to Austin. I randomly walked into a Potbelly sandwich store to get a bite to eat and turn around and there's David Ramirez sitting in the corner of the Potbelly playing some song and we caught eyes and just literally in the middle of the song he just stopped playing and put his guitar down and came up and I was like, are you like performing? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, you could finish the song. He's like, nah, don't worry about it.
That's funny.
So we reconnected and over the remaining years since then have just become really close and gone through a lot together, both personally and musically. Yeah. So I'm excited to talk in this capacity with one of my best friends.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's what as we were talking about doing the podcast and just a lot of things that you were sharing about how, what music means to you and how you've kind of been in and out of it and how David has kind of continues to forge his way in music and has done really well for himself. And, I guess creative parts of like writing a song and sticking with it. And I think we have a lot of questions in that area as far as creativity goes.
Yeah. One of the things that sticks out to me about David is that through the years, we've had a lot of friends that started out with us, whether as singer-songwriters or in bands and make really legitimate goes at a music career. And off the top of my head, I think David's the only one who has really stuck it out. He has a great amount of persistence And that's been really cool to watch. I have a lot of respect for him because of that. And I think through that persistence, I think I have a lot of thoughts around art and success, but one of them is that persistence is so much of it. Yeah. And I think that's shown some successes in David's life. I'm excited to have him share his perspective on that.
Yeah. And also just living life too as a musician. I mean, relationships and friends and touring. I feel like that'd be an interesting thing too, how that affects the creative process as well as just personally, like how you do that. I mean, I think that's something you see, I think in business and also music and how sometimes your craft can kind of really, mean a lot and really kind of stretch you in different places, So, that's another thing too, is even like music as a business and music as an art too. I think there's some really interesting, where that tension is. I think you and I had kind of talked about a little bit of that. I think that'd be fun to kind of get David's thoughts on that too.
Yeah, definitely. And that tension I think is approached differently in an automatic way, differently when you approach something sort of wanting to be an artist and when you approach something wanting to start a business. Yeah. And I think in both cases, or a lot of cases, both of those things are required. But I think it takes learning and time and maturity to where you find a balance between the two that allows both to live and succeed. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, we're already into it.
Are we going too far in the intro?
Maybe so. Well, anyways, guys.
Well, let's kick it off.
Yeah, David Ramirez up next, and come to Instagram. We've got stuff there. What else anything else there? Yeah.
No.
There we go.
All right.
I plugged.
Here we go.
All right.
It's like a fleeting memory. Whatever you grab just turns to dust. Like eye contact with a stranger in a crowded room. Is a dream begging to reveal. The passing note of a song. The glimmer of the shifting sea. You think you saw it, you think you see it.
David.
Matthew.
It's good to see you in my house.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
It's embarrassing when you ask me, you invite me over to your home, and it's been so long that I have to ask for the address again.
I know. What's up with that? What has become of us?
I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you're here now. Thanks for coming and doing this with us.
Of course.
I'm super excited. I don't think we've interviewed anybody that I've just been so close to and gone through so much life with. And I was telling you when I asked you to do
your
this.
Dad.
Yeah, I was like, you're old man.
My dad, that's true. I was telling you when I wanted to do this, I was like, it's basically just going to be like any other night that we've spent on the picnic table on my back porch.
Yeah, totally. Which is a great pitch.
Yeah.
I don't need to be convinced to do that.
Well, let's just jump right into it. Do you feel persistent?
When people talk about it like that, I do. I don't. I think there was a time when I first moved to Austin. You were talking about a bunch of us were all playing music together.
Yeah.
Doing coffee shops or open mics and trying to book gigs. I think there was a time shortly after that, once I noticed people started kind of falling off, getting married or having kids or just deciding to get like a proper job because of money or whatever, that I felt the need to be persistent. Because I think at that time it was probably the easiest to just say, yeah, if everyone else is kind of calling it quits, maybe I should. But I don't consider myself persistent now. I think I'm in a place where this is just my job now.
Yeah.
I don't wake up feeling a struggle to maintain or to be creative. It's just something that I do now.
You feel like your career's reached or gathered enough momentum where you're not daily trying to push it forward.
Yeah. There's that, and then there's also it used to be a dream, and it's not a dream anymore. It's my identity. It's just who I am, and I mean that in the most or in the least egotistical way. I'm a songwriter, and that's my job.
Yeah.
And so,
when did that change for you?
A few years ago, I guess. I couldn't tell you a specific moment, but it's been like that for a little while now.
Yeah. Was it like a slow transition? You just kind of just found yourself like, oh, wow, this is my job. I do this.
Yeah, I do this. Yeah. And, I think once tours started being booked like 6 months in advance. I think that was a really key moment, because it wasn't like, hey, next month maybe we'll go on tour. It's like, this is the business side of things. Like, I know what I'm doing next summer, and so your year is just sped up and you already know what's going on. I don't know. I think that plays a large part in it. There's a schedule now.
Yeah. Did the business side always make sense to you, or was that something you had to kind of learn?
No, and it still doesn't really, to be honest.
Yeah.
I try my best to kind of leave that to the people who enjoy it, and I just want to play songs.
Do you have a team behind you now? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Management and agent and a small label that helps out with like PR when a record comes out. So there's a team. Business manager, that was fun to get a CPA for the first time.
Yeah, so you have to do that stuff.
I don't have to do taxes anymore. It's amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can think of one time. There was one night we were out, and this was, who knows, 6-7 years ago. You said something to me like, I'm thinking I might get a job. Mm-hmm. And other than that one time, I can never remember you ever expressing any vocal or outward potential of not giving everything that you had, all of yourself. And that was during a time when you were still driving that old beat up Kia that was such a huge part. It was your home for a long time.
For a while.
And booking tours, just trying to fill space all of the time.
Yeah. And not making any money. I think that was the big part about it.
Yeah.
I still probably would have found weekends to play, but it's not fun being broke for a very long time.
Yeah.
You can coast for a little while, but when you're talking about 3 years of still like the smallest amount of cash flow, it can be exhausting.
Yeah, when you were in that space for a decade at least.
Yeah, totally. I mean, only in the last 2 years I feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's good.
So
that's really incredible.
Why the hell did you keep going, dude?
I don't know. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a simple answer. I love it. I believe in art. I believe in the necessity of it. I believe in the power it holds. And at the end of the day, it is fun. Like, it's just really fun. There's nothing more gratifying to me than struggling to write a song and then getting it.
Yeah.
And when you have all the pieces there, I'll stomp around the house and light a cigarette and take a shot of tequila whenever I get to a place that I just find so awesome. Mm-hmm. And I make a joke that I don't do that after sex. I don't like stomp around the room and like light a cigarette and say, fuck yeah, And sex is great. Mm-hmm. But there's something so rewarding about writing something that you believe.
You saying that writing a song is better than sex?
Completing one, yeah. Writing a good one, definitely. Yeah.
Uh-huh. You probably also it's a elongated process.
Yes.
The payoff is bigger.
Yeah. The payoff is bigger. Yeah. I don't know. You're a songwriter also. Yeah. I think it's just it's a challenging thing because you're forced to look yourself in the mirror and not just figure out who you are. And this is with every song. But what do you believe? What do you believe about the world? How do you see? Every song is basically your worldview. If it's a love song, it's like, well, how do you view love? And that's what you have to write about. So you have all these like self-therapy sessions, and I find it very rewarding.
It's always been like a self-revealing process to me.
Yeah.
Especially, I hit that moment where something clicks and you're like, damn, that feels good. And then you step back from it and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
What am I saying
about
myself?
What am I even talking about? Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful. And then we all listen to music, and we've all felt those moments of just the wow moments when you hear a great song, and being able to have that opportunity on a very small level, granted, but with some of my fans it's life-changing when you hear people's stories about something that you did. It's pretty cool, pretty tight.
You were saying earlier that you said that you feel like it's necessary.
Yeah.
Which part?
Well, creativity, I think, is necessary for all of us. I think everyone has to be creative to some capacity because exactly what we're talking about. It's revealing. Mm-hmm. We would know ourselves a lot better and be a lot more self-aware about everything if we just created, not even just wrote, but if you sat down with a paintbrush and, you know, painted a canvas from time to time, just the discipline and I don't know. I find that to be necessary, and I think art is necessary in the world. It's an escape, for lack of a better term, you know? You get to be transported by someone else's story or life, and I don't know, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. It's necessary on both sides. We have to create and we have to consume or be touched by the creations of others.
Agreed.
In order to understand ourselves and experience ourselves. There's a quote from somebody somewhere that says something like, art gives us the opportunity to explore every aspect of ourselves in an area where there's no consequences.
Yeah.
You read a fiction and you get to let those characters explore the parts of you that relate to them, whether that's the good guy or the bad guy.
Sounds like a Madeline Angle, like in the creative.
It absolutely is. I think it's Walking on Water.
Walking on Water.
Yeah.
That's exactly where that is from.
That was a really good
Nice
book.
catch.
Yeah. Well, it was triggering all those things. I was like,
Yeah.
Nice catch.
that's good. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. For me, I'm a reader and I love studying things, but there is something about fiction that you can get into other people's characters and experience something prior to like actually going out into the world, you know. And I think that's something that's really powerful. You get that through music too. It's like, you know, you're listening to a song and they bring you into something. It's almost like a gateway that they're like opening to you, that you might be like you're experiencing something that you might have not touched or you didn't have the words for or didn't really understand what it was, you know. I always think of it like there's something for me whenever I'm going after something. It's like there's this taste of honey, and so you kind of digging around, you're looking at stuff, and then you start this taste kind of comes out. You're like, there's something in that, and so you start digging a little bit more, and then you kind of have to peel away some of the nasty bits, you know, and then it just gets more and more like, you know, flavorful. Thank you. Yeah. And I think that's, I don't know if that's how it is with music for me. Like for me, it's ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing.
Chase after.
I mean, with songs, it starts with a tiny little idea. Then you have to chase that rabbit. You know? And most of the time it ends in a way you didn't anticipate it ending. But
yeah, the interesting thing about music, especially music where there is a lyrical component to it, as an art form, hits and affects us in a way that's very, very different from any other art form that I can think of. And I think the only way that I can really describe that is that you have the musical component, which we have a very strong emotional reaction to. And then we have the lyrical component, which is somewhat abstract. Lyrics tend to be simpler than you would say something out loud or write it in prose. And we can feel something different from the music than the artist did when he wrote it. And then we get sort of a clearer picture of what the artist is trying to communicate from his lyrics. And the end is that, the end result is, the way that I experience it, is that a song, you feel something and you experience something and you write it, and you write the music and you write the lyrics and you sing it, and a person receives it and something net new is created in their experience. Different emotions, a different take. I mean, I've written songs and had people tell me what they thought about it and the way it made them feel. And it was something completely different than the position I came from when I created it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really amazing thing. There's something very personal about it, but it's also a very communal and oral activity, singing songs for people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
Or even how the songs morph too. I had a friend, it was early on in college, followed around a lot. It was Rodney Brannigan. And I saw this one song performed probably 20, 30 times. And we were at this coffee shop in Dallas one time, and he like ripped the song. I mean, it was just like, and it was funny because I've listened to it so many times, and he just went, "I give you my love." It was just like a quiet time. He just let it, and it shocked me.
Sure.
And it is ingrained in my mind because like he took that song that I've heard 20 or 30 times and just kind of like took me out of my my space, and was just like, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Really
That's the beautiful thing about live. When things are live, you can't change them. Mm-mm. Yeah, you really. I firmly believe you're not singing the same song over and over and over again. Every night's different. The energy in the room's different, depending on the city, depending on the crowd, size, and demographic. Mm-hmm. Every song, you can sing a song. Shoeboxes, for instance, is the title of one of mine. I've sang it 10,000 times. Mm-hmm. But I firmly believe I've never sang it the same way twice. It's impossible.
You sang 10,000 songs.
I've sang 10,000 songs. Yeah,
completely different songs. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I think a great example of this is what Ryan Adams did with Taylor Swift's 1989 record.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's a completely different record with a completely different end result.
Yeah.
in me, same songs.
Same songs.
Written down on paper, same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
Is it for you for doing it solo versus with a band? How does that change things for you?
In a lot of ways. I never. The dream was to never tour the world alone. Mm-hmm. I think everyone wants to be in a band. No one wants to be just the sad guy by himself with an acoustic guitar. But I just couldn't afford having a full-time band, and so it's just inexpensive and cheap to throw a guitar in a car. So currently, because I've done that for so long, I love playing with the band because there's just sounds. There's other stuff going on, There's music, and there's energy, and the collaboration is just a blast. Mm-hmm. It's so much fun, and yeah. And the solo things, even if you have this upbeat rock and roll tune or whatever, even when you play it solo, like it's not as rock and roll as it would be with the group,
Yeah. Do you? I would describe you, and I think most people would, as a singer-songwriter. Do you relate to that?
I do, and I've tried to fight it over the years because I don't think the term singer-songwriter has any rock and roll characteristic to it.
Right, and that's why I ask you.
And
because you love rock and roll.
Yeah, of course I do. Who doesn't?
You've got some rock tunes.
Yeah, and and Tom York of Radiohead, if we're dealing with semantics, he's a singer-songwriter, but no one would say that about Tom York.
Right.
He's a frontman of a band.
Right.
Well, but I fought it forever. But yes, I am a singer-songwriter. Yeah, that's what I am.
I guess are there any frontmen of any rock and roll bands that aren't singer-songwriters?
That's my point.
Yeah.
It's like, why did we create this term that just says the obvious thing, Can't you just call me like a folk artist or something?
It is a strange term.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we Matt and I were talking about this before of like how you classify different artists.
Yeah.
And use different bands and you try to meld them together. So.
Yeah, I feel like generally if you ask somebody what genre they are, I tend to reference other musicians rather than say a genre.
Right. Because you say a genre and they still, most people like don't know.
Yeah.
Americana, well, what's that? Okay, well, it's kind of like Neil Young or something,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've tried in the last year, and it's worked out so far, just saying, when people ask, just saying, it's American rock and roll.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Americana's too broad. No one really knows what that is. And I think people are like, oh, American rock and roll. I know an American rock and roll band. Yeah. And then they don't ask anymore. It's great. And the subject is dropped. Yeah.
Well, Michael was asking me what genre you were, and we had this sort of short conversation, but it was interesting because I was noting as I was thinking about you that I think you have come into your own in a place where people might mention your name in response to what genre is this other person category. And it's been really cool to, over the years, see you find your voice that is uniquely you, and the way that you sing, the way that you phrase things, the way that you say things. I think it was somewhere around Apologies when I first started noticing that happen.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's, man, I just want to celebrate that. That's incredible.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I'm down to celebrate.
Did you notice that?
I don't think I noticed it then. I think I was still just in the mindset of like, I got to write songs because I need to make a record. And I'm proud of all those songs on there, but I didn't really start noticing it until I think a couple years ago.
Noticing your own voice.
Yeah, and I think a large part of that had to deal with the band coming in a lot more full-time than it had been in the past. And we started touring more, and so I had to learn how to sing with a lot more confidence because there is a lot more noise happening on stage. And
yeah, you had spent so many years playing alone with an acoustic guitar and learning to lead a room that way.
Totally, and that's, at the end of the day, not that hard to do. And so I learned I gained a lot of confidence from playing with the band, because also when you're just alone on stage, no one's really expecting you to move around. They're not expecting a show. They're coming to watch the songwriter tell his stories, you know? But with the band, it's kind of like, oh, people are showing up because they want a show. Yeah. Even if it's the quiet songs, like, let's move around, like, let's enjoy the space and let's engage people in that way. And so that kind of played a large part into it as well. So I think now when I step onto stage, I know how to get to that point, and I didn't know how to do that in the past. It's really freeing. It feels really nice, and that's the fun part to me anyway, being on stage.
You recently started a side project with a bunch of other guys called Glorietta.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you, and did you gain more of that you were just talking about from that experience?
Absolutely. So Glorietta it's a hodgepodge mix of like 5 or 6 different songwriters that all individually have their own careers.
Okay. I think you can call it a supergroup.
Supergroup, yeah. I feel a little strange about that because none of us are particularly all that super. But yeah, it is a
Americana supergroup.
Yeah, that's right. But Matthew Vasquez, he wanted to bring us all together and make a record for fun.
Oh, cool.
And there's we went out to Santa Fe, New Mexico, rented an Airbnb, brought a bunch of equipment like this and even more things, made a record in a week. And we raged out there. We drank so much tequila and mezcal. It was insane. And I think a lot of that shows on the record, and a lot of that has definitely translated to our live show. And the live show is how they like to define it as we tour around throwing house parties in every city we go to. That's pretty much the whole thing. And so it's wild and it's fun and it's incredibly drunk, and the crowds are loving it. And I had no idea what to expect. I was like, this might be just a disaster. And my music, more often than not, is extremely sentimental and internal. And so you don't see a lot of people at a David Ramirez show with massive smiles on their face. And at this Glorietta thing, I'm looking out in the crowd playing, and I'm like, everyone's just like laughing. They're just like so happy watching this thing go down that it is a disaster on stage. But I think they love seeing the friendship. I think they love, I think ultimately that's the friendship. Yeah, the songs are good, but they're not life-changing songs. It's just friendship on stage, and it's a good time. So that taught me a lot too.
So I haven't caught the Glorietta show yet.
Next Friday.
I've seen your pictures online. Yeah, next Friday here in Austin.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. But you were saying there's not a lot of happy faces at a David Ramirez concert. I've toured with you and played in your band long enough to know that that's not true. But I imagine it's a different kind of happiness, right?
It's a different happy.
A lot of people are very like into the music and themselves, and there's not a lot of like arms around shoulders, the friendship thing you're talking about.
Yeah. There's not a lot of that for sure. So that taught me a lot, that as much as people really enjoy feeling all the feels and emotions at a show or in a film, they don't necessarily want to feel them all the time. That's been a very large awakening to me. And so I've been taking notes, and this next record I do is not going to sound like Glorietta, but I'm bringing that mindset in. Like, let me put out a record where people just have a good time when they listen to it. Yeah. It's not so like heavy or brooding, you know, but
I feel like some people listening right now might be thinking, "Oh no,
Oh yeah, I'm
what
sure.
about my David Ramirez
Yeah,
commodity
yeah,
that I've
yeah.
come to love and expect?"
Totally. We fit you in this category, and you must stay there for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gotta be hard as an artist, as far as like something's expected of you now, like,
Yeah.
and it's like it's hard to like just you talking about that right there was you kind of see a new avenue for you to kind of creatively go, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, totally. And people are harsh with the artists they choose to allow in their lives. They hold them very dear to their heart, and if you want to change, it offends them. And they are not afraid to tell you.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to tell you that they are not a fan of you with the band. I don't like your band. It's too loud. I like you just alone. I don't like this new record. There's not enough acoustic songs on it. They will find you and hunt you down at a
Like,
show.
excuse me, you didn't put it in order.
Yeah,
like
who
I'm
the
doing
fuck asked
this.
you in the first place? Yeah. But they will hunt you down and let you know, and it can be rough and very discouraging, and also just like how do I say it? They take the humanity out of the music. Like, I am a person, so let me evolve, like all people can and should. Allow that to happen. But they take the human out of it, and it becomes very selfish. That's not across the board, but it does exist.
Was there a time when you noticed that people started feeling like they had license to complain to you about
It's
about your art?
I think when I really started playing full time with the band, that was when people really were like, I think they just felt like, if we don't let him know now, then he's just going to be in a band forever, and we gotta stop this before it really gets going.
You're like, excuse me, we already went through the '60s. We did this with Bob Dylan.
We did this with Dylan. People, come on, we're fine. And on some level, I think as a band we have a lot to work on. I have years and years to go before I really figure out how to be an incredible front man. So in a lot of ways, I think people, they're coming to see a band that's brand new, and so we're not the best at what we do. We're still trying to figure it out and find chemistry within one another. And so on that level, I'm sure we have played shows where it's just like, this sounds like a brand new band. It doesn't sound like these guys have been playing together forever. But
That sounds so risky and also like kind of brave to like do something that you're not as good at as your, the one man show type stuff. So that seems.
Yeah, it can be intimidating. I don't know if I'd call it risky because it's what I want to do. I don't find that to be risky or courageous. Just like, well, if I want to do this, then we got to work out the kinks.
Well, I mean, if it fall, I mean, it's like, again, it's I'm gonna go to this side of it. It's like, it's your living, and what if it's not, people don't respond the same way.
Yeah,
I mean that can be pretty. I think of it with Medici and stuff like that. Like if I do the wrong thing or that, it's like my livelihood.
Right.
But again, there's the other side too. But
Sure.
there's that sort of like. I don't want to put like any, more like, oh man, it does suck. Sorry.
Oh, sure. Well, if it is a deal with finances or money, which I'll allow, like, let's take a moment to just hypothetically say it's all about the money. If it is all about the money, I think I got to a point as a solo artist that I could go back to that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be broke.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's not all about the money, so it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah.
So if all else fails with these new ideas that you have with Medici, then just go back to making coffee.
Oh yeah.
Just coffee.
Exactly.
And I think you'll be all right.
Well, I think that's the thing is like, because all those things do creep in, but at the same time, it's, I love what I do, and it's like we're going into roasting.
I love your shop, man. It's
Yeah,
great.
Well, and I think that's kind of what we were talking about earlier with the tension between the art and the business. And I think anything that becomes, anything that has art in it, maybe, that's not just sort of like reproducing some commodity, but, you created Medici and people started coming because of the love and care and the art that you put into the experience, into the product. It was real, right? And they started coming because of that.
Yeah.
And anytime something becomes successful, it is, I think, human nature for the people that made it and the people that come and start to love it to sort of think, oh, this is successful. It can't change.
Sure.
Because then it won't be the same thing and it will fail.
Yeah.
But the problem is that it became that thing that became successful in the first place by being real.
Yeah.
And by questioning itself and exploring itself. And so if you give into that motivation to not change it, then it dies anyway because it becomes too rigid and it becomes Starbucks, or whatever.
Yeah.
So you have to continue to change. You have to continue to push your own boundaries. Otherwise, you're not actually doing the same thing that you were doing when you started. You're actually doing now. If you were to be like, okay, I'll do what I'm hearing that I want, that would really be the major change.
Sure.
Like you would be off the course that you started off on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's important to evolve, not just as the one doing the evolving, but for people to go on that journey with it. I mean, if my favorite artist made the same exact record every time, then how would I ever change?
Yeah, totally.
How would I actually, if a film director is going to make a movie exactly how I want them to make a movie, then I'm not going to get anything out of it.
Yeah.
Because I only know what I know. I can't change unless someone else who knows different things influences that into me. And so it's a bummer sometimes because you're like, if we all let each other change, we'll all be better. But people get scared, I think. That's probably what it boils down to, is just fear.
Well, it's also comforting too. There's a certain level of whenever you're used to something, you can kind of like, it's safe. And I think that's something with art that is, you're stepping out into somewhat the unknown. There's some ideas I've been kind of playing around with in this area of like, even if you kind of look at, say the lifespan of like humans and the lifespan of like a baby to an adult, it's like when you're first starting off, there's this sort of like creative exploration where you don't really know what's out there. And you're kind of like grabbing things and putting things in your mouth.
Sure.
And then as you're developing, you start to kind of codify some stuff, and you know this is hot, this is cold.
Sure.
And it's not until you're like later on, like many, many steps forward, that you start to philosophize and rationalize.
Sure.
So it's like you need those people that are stepping out there and kind of like creatively like playing or and touching things and like, even then kind of like even translating it to other people, in different fields, whether it be art or music or, business or, it can just, but you need those people that are kind of out there on the forefronts, kind of playing a little bit.
Yeah. That just reminds me of exactly what you were just talking about with Glorietta. Like you got the opportunity to go out and play and experience something new that you didn't generally experience out of your other activities.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And now you're going to bring some of that back. And maybe having that project out there will help people be more accepting of it.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, in large part, most people are, and most people are fine. So I by no means want to sound like all my fans are just coming up and dogging everything that I do.
Yeah, totally.
Just a handful of folks in a handful of places. For the most part, everyone's extremely supportive and incredibly kind.
What do you do to kind of get away, or to, if you need to like recharge, or just like you just hit a wall, or everything just sucks at that time, or something? Do you just sit and wait it out, or do you kind of like run naked down the street?
I should try that.
Yeah.
That might help. I don't think I have a thing. Yeah. Not like a quirky thing like Aaron Sorkin. If he gets writer's block, he'll go take a shower, and then he'll come back to his typewriter or whatever he writes on. Sometimes he's taking like 6 showers while he's trying to write one story. He'll just go do that. I've tried things like that, and it never really works for me. I just have to walk away. Just leave it. I think it's a lot simpler than we try to make it. I just leave and go to a bar, play pool, or I go watch a movie by myself in the theater, which I do all the time.
Yeah.
I wish I had something really, really fun to share, but no, it's pretty boring.
We should try the running down the street naked.
The
next
running
time.
down the street naked. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Have
when
you
I hear
ever done
riders,
that?
I wouldn't tell you if I did, but no, I haven't yet.
that is a yes.
Not yet.
I don't think I've ever been naked in public. Like butt naked in public. I don't think.
That shocks me.
Oh, I take this back. Skinny dipping counts.
Skinny dipping counts.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
naked in
all right.
public. Yeah.
I was like, am I even living a life right now? But I've never sprinted down a street naked. No. But skinny dipping, yeah, that counts. Definitely.
I guess it depends on whether or not you get naked before you get in the water.
Yeah.
Because one can imagine a scenario where,
Yeah. Yeah, I prefer to get naked before the water.
that's part of the rush.
Yeah, that's the rush.
Yeah.
That's what we're living for.
Yeah, actually, I did walk through the forest naked one time, but that was not public. So
Well, are you camping or something?
no, it was like a kind of a getaway, and I was in the middle of absolute nowhere, and I was just like, I'm just gonna like go back to the basics.
Yeah.
It
You're
was
out there
awesome.
with,
That's
with
hysterical.
2 sticks and stones, and you're making a fire.
Yeah.
Just you and Mother Nature. Yeah. That's fun.
But I didn't get anything creative out of it, so it was just really nice.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with being with musicians. It's like I don't have a lot of musical talent, so I always like to watch. I always liked watching you guys' shows and stuff. So I was a good fan.
Well, that's important too. I mean, before we hit record on this thing, and we were talking about a city that I just played this last weekend. It was energy is important in a room, and I think you're making light of it that you're a good fan, but it's like incredibly important. It could make or break a show, to have people out there that aren't giving as much as the people on stage are giving.
Yeah.
Because that is totally felt, I think, in both parties. Yeah, it can ruin a show if people are just super lame.
Yeah.
They can be very polite.
Yeah. Totally.
Very polite. But you're not going to give 110% on stage because you're like, do they even care about me?
That's a really interesting point that I don't think people think about unless they've been in the position of being on a stage in front of a bunch of people
Totally.
whose attention is dependent,
Yeah,
at least in some part, on you.
absolutely.
And their active participation in that attention
Absolutely.
is it defines what happens on stage as much as the reverse.
Because you can play like, if you're a solo songwriter, play a show and people are super quiet, but there's 2 shows, they're different. These are really quiet. These are really quiet, but there's something about this room that they're just in it, even though they're quiet.
They're
feel
actively quiet.
Actively quiet. And it's a strange thing. And I don't know if there's a way to teach it, but it's just when the stars align, and it helps. Like just because you're a quiet show doesn't mean that when the song's over you just have to give a golf clap. Those other rooms are like you finish a song and they just lose their minds. But then once you start the next one, it's like and that's incredible. That's what you want every night, ideally, because then you really go for it.
What's been the worst show you've ever played?
It has to be around some audience like this. Like some cities, smaller cities in Scandinavia can be like incredibly psychotic. Like just they're so timid. The whole time you just feel like you're doing something wrong. Like that you have no right being on stage basically. But then you finish the show and they're like, "Oh my God, it was great," or whatever. But for an hour and a half, you're like, "This sucks. I don't want to be here right now." I had a really long drive, like a 7-hour drive. I forget from what city, but we were heading to this town called, I can't even pronounce it, Borlong or Borlange or something. And the venue was a bar that was in a Best Western, nice. And the venue was called Broken Dreams. and it completely lived up to its name.
Oh man!
Wow.
So I think that's number one that comes to mind is out there. Sweet people, just a really hard evening, definitely. Broken Dreams.
Broken Dreams. Yeah, that's a fine name for a dive bar.
Yeah.
Not a good name when you're asking people to come in
To
and
come
like
play.
bare their souls.
Yeah. And it was like 15 degrees.
Could you be creative here?
Yeah.
No.
It was in the middle of the tundra out there. It was soul crushing.
What is it about that experience? Like it's almost like a transcendental or spiritual experience whenever those things connect. You know, it's like, because I could see it has to be both sides, like the audience and you coming together. And it's almost like you're making art or performing something that is greater than both of you. You know?
Totally, yeah. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's just magic.
Damn it, I was hoping you would know.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But it's real. Mm-hmm. You can feel it. And you know when you're at a show and you're watching somebody on stage just destroy it, and you're like, where's that coming from? Sure, a lot of it's talent. Sure, a lot of it's practice. Mm-hmm. But probably in that night, if they're really swinging for the fences, 90% of it, I would imagine, has because the crowd is bringing it also.
Right.
Yeah, which is, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, because like some of the stuff we're talking about or have been talking about, like this idea of that order and chaos, like always having one foot in chaos and one foot in order. And it's like this, like, who is it? I think it's Peterson that talks about this, or Brett Weinstein Peterson, talking about like watching a gymnast that is like in the going for the gold, and their routine is insane. Like they're on the edge of at any moment they're pushing their skills beyond their abilities, and they could eat shit at any moment, but they pull it off, and the crowd just goes, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
What just happened? I mean, I don't even know much about gymnastics, and I watch it.
It's wild to watch.
And I'm just going, I don't know what you just did, but it looked amazing.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know
sense
anything
some
about
danger in it, despite the obvious massive amount of skill that you just displayed. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know much about athletics, but I imagine it's got to be something different than a live music show. I feel like you have to turn it off. Yeah. Like turn your head off. Like not in
gymnastics or orthotics?
Yeah, I think so. Like remember that Kevin Costner film For Love of the Game?
I don't know if I ever saw it.
It's incredible. First of all, Kevin Costner in baseball, that's PB&J right there. It's a recipe for greatness. And but he's a pitcher, and as he's about to pitch, every throw, he looks at the catcher and he says to himself, "Clear the mechanism." And then all of a sudden you see like the peripheries in the camera, like everything just goes blurry and silent. And it's like one of the coolest scenes ever. Clear the mechanism. And then he can just pitch and he's on. I think there's got to be some level of that with athletes.
Do you relate to that at all from a performance aspect?
No, I never really want to turn it off. I want to feel it all. Yeah. So, no, I never clear my head or anything.
Do you feel more open when you perform on a stage?
As a person?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's when I'm my most honest self, for sure. Yeah. It's easy to hide out here, but it's not easy up there. And I don't think they deserve that. They deserve honesty, you know. We all bullshit each other. This is a thing that I think about constantly. We all bullshit each other and ourselves, like on a pretty regular basis. We exaggerate things, we lie about things, but there's something about when you see someone performing that now's not the time for you to be full of shit. Like, if we were hanging out at a bar and you're telling me some outlandish story that maybe half of it's true, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, cool. I want the laugh, you know. But if you're full of shit on stage, I don't want it. And I think there's an honesty that is demanded in my kind of music. Some bands it doesn't. You know, you can do whatever you want, but for the stories that I'm trying to tell, and I think that's necessary for sure.
Yeah, it seems like there's some that are more performance oriented and just in general, like they're putting on almost a play or something.
Sure, yeah.
Than a more of a connection.
Yeah, Like, I'm sure Sigur Rós doesn't. They could do whatever they want. You know, I don't know what they're talking about. It's just beautiful music.
Yeah, but I still think that there's that requirement for honesty. I mean, I think you can feel it when someone performs music live, and you're not getting all of them. I mean,
True.
Whether it's Sigur Rós or
I mean, they make me weep. So,
Yeah,
so it's got to be coming from somewhere.
right.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen them play live once, and I definitely felt massively connected to what was going on stage.
That's cool.
I mean, even in a massive amphitheater,
Sure.
you know, sitting in the nosebleeds,
Right.
felt it. And that, I don't think you can manufacture that out
You
of
can't.
any place
You can't fake
other
it.
than honesty.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hell, it's all honesty then.
We solved it.
We solved it.
So, Jack.
We got it. Oh, we answered one thing.
There we go. Good.
Yeah.
I can take that one home with
Yeah.
me. But how's like once you step off stage? I mean, is it in my mind? It would be like sort of like I just bared my soul, and you step off stage, and you're going back to the naked analogy. You're like, oh shoot, I got to put my clothes back on, or you just kind of like proudly walk off stage naked. You know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Because pretty religiously, I go out after a show to drink.
Yeah.
And a large part of that has to do with just bad habits I've formed. But a lot of it, I think I want to celebrate that moment. I think there's a lot of that too. Like, we just did that.
That's always been a big thing. And we were doing that
Yeah.
all the time. And when we were playing shows,
Yeah.
there is always that desire to like, we just did this badass, amazing thing. We got to celebrate.
We did this.
Yeah.
We gotta have
Did
a
you
drink.
feel that?
Yeah.
I felt it. Did you
Totally.
feel it?
Totally. And I think sometimes I'm unfair to the band because I don't require them to go out every night because that's nonsense. But there are nights where they're like tired, and so we get done packing up. They're like, "All right, head in the hotel," and it makes me so sad.
Do you give them the puppy dog face? and
Pretty
stuff?
much. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Okay, all right. They're like, "We've been going on for a week straight. All right, I need some sleep." I'm like, "Fair enough."
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to celebrate it, and it's really fun too because you know more than likely you'll run into somebody who's at the show, and then I like talking to people. Just most people at a Ramirez show, if they're a guy, they're trying to be a songwriter on some level. Most of them, and so you run into people at bars and just talk shop, and I get off on that. It's really fun, like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How shift gears a little bit? How try to think how to phrase this. I'll just go general with it, and you can kind of pick what you want out of it. But how has this life for you affected your relationships, the way that you relate to people? I mean, I think there's some really obvious aspects to that question, and one is you're gone a lot, which affects your ability to sustain relationships in the same way that other people may.
Right.
But there's also an element, I think, of the question. You know, I think I noticed maybe a year and a half ago that there was a distinct sort of change in, you know, before we'd go out to a bar and hang out, and it was us and whoever we invited.
Yeah.
And then at some point, people started coming up to you. I could be out, we're trying to have a conversation, catch up on something personal, and it's hard because people are coming up, hey, you're David Ramirez, right? You know, like that's happening now.
Yeah, that's happening now.
So how has this job, or how do you perceive that this has affected your relationships and your position there?
That's a great question. Something I think of often. And I think it always changes too. But one thing that is always a struggle is just how incredibly selfish I can be. Because I know we all struggle with selfishness, so maybe I'm not alone here, but the world that I've created for myself regarding my music revolves around me completely. It doesn't involve anybody else. Even when the band's there, they're my songs, you know, like we don't write together. It's my life. And so I think that's been difficult for relationships because and it's something that I'm still working on and have to be very intentional with. But if you want to hang out with me, you got to come see me or whatever, or, you know, me and my gal. It's like, don't tell me what to do. You know, like I'll do whatever I want. Like people know me. You know, like I don't say these things out loud. You know, but there's this mental thing of like, people adore me. Like, why are you being like this? You know, can't you just like adore me also? You know, and these struggles are very real for me. So that's a big one that I constantly have to work on. As far as people saying hello in public, it doesn't happen to a point now where it's annoying. It's occasional, so it's really nice and like flattering. But yeah, I don't think about that until it happens. I'm like, oh, that's right. There's music out there. And
does it ever feel oppressive? This thing, having this part of you that's out there, that's constantly existing.
Yeah,
and even you're describing this sort of world that revolves around you.
Yeah, I don't know. Oppressive. It's strange to think about it, because for the longest time I've been working to get to a place like this,
right.
And it's kind of happening. But I worked so long where no one knew who the hell I was or cared, and so now it's like, I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing. So I don't walk into a bar being like, but there's some people here who know me, you know, because I'm still in my head the guy playing open mics at a wine house, you know. I wouldn't call it oppressive. Not for me, anyway. And certainly not right now. It's not on a large enough scale to be oppressive, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know that was the right word.
I don't think, Maybe I know what you're getting at, but I can't figure out the word that you're looking for, though.
Suffocating?
Maybe so.
I mean, I feel like I feel like a negative aspect to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, and maybe this will answer your question, but my identity for so long was wrapped up in this exclusively. I am a songwriter, I'm a singer, I tour and make records. That is who I am in a nutshell, head to toe, heart to soul. That's who I am. And it wasn't until and then I lost a couple relationships because I was that self-involved, where I would outright say to this person's face, you are number 2 in my life. My number 1 priority is this music and my career, which I can't believe I had the audacity to say this to people. But that's how self-involved I was. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I really started to see me in a different light. And I think it had to do with a lot of friends that calling me out. I think it had to do with losing another relationship because of my behavior. And I don't know, it's just been nice to explore my identity in other ways. Like, I'm not just a musician, you know? I'm a son. I'm a brother. Currently and thankfully, and hopefully this lasts forever with my gal now, but I'm a partner in life. And so I've been taking those things into consideration, but I think that's what was oppressive in the past, or suffocating, is that I was so one-dimensional that I actually couldn't do anything positive except for write songs.
Except to the service of the thing that was first.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was like you're almost a caricature of yourself type thing, or is that...
I don't know. I probably could have got there if I was just making the same records, you know, all the time. But I got out of that with this last album, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah, that sounds badass. That whole what was it called? Glorietta.
Oh yeah, but my record, my personal record that came out last year, it's quite a departure from what I used to put out, and that was very refreshing, and I think helped me not become a caricature of myself.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome to have friends that call you out, though, too.
Yeah, I don't enjoy it.
No.
But in hindsight, I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'm like, I don't want to hear this.
Yeah,
what are you
fuck off,
talking
dude.
about? Yeah, leave me the fuck alone. Yeah. Yeah.
That's hard to do. You know, it's like having people that are around you that can say, like, hey, man, that's kind of shitty.
Totally.
And be okay with, like, not afraid of how you're going to act, or even like to, lose your friendship or whatever. It's like, no, this is actually more important than...
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it hasn't been a dozen of friends. I'm sure it's not like this onslaught of critiques I'm getting from everybody, but it's particular conversations in certain moments. And 3 years ago, I had a friend who lives with me here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
He just said, "Dude, you're a piece of shit." I was like, "What?" He's like, "I love you, but you're acting like a real piece of shit. And what you did was absolutely terrible." I was like, "Oh, okay." I had to take some stock in that.
That's a good friend.
It's a good friend. Yeah. For sure.
I feel like we all need that in our lives.
Yeah, we need to give it to, and I'm so scared of doing that to some friends, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's terrifying because you may lose them, you know? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like even in like relationships, like Alice and I, my wife and I are very non-confrontational in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was maybe 8 years into our marriage. And I had to learn how to say, because like she would say something that would hurt my feelings, but I knew that she didn't mean to say it in that way. And so I'd be like, that's okay.
Right.
Oh, she didn't really mean that. And
Right.
I had to learn like to say, obviously in the most non-confrontational way, it's like, hey, you know, babe, that thing you said, that actually kind of hurt.
Yeah, that hurt my feelings.
Yeah, it hurt my
totally.
feelings, you know, just acknowledging that and her to me also, you know. And it's just, it's kind of hilarious because we're, you know, it's like a lot of times that will come out like, man, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
You made me, you know, it's like,
Totally.
you start yelling and screaming, but we're kind of more like, hey, you know. But it's actually really good. You need to have conflict and you need to have things that you butt up against, you know.
Right.
It's like, if you don't have that in your life, it's like.
Well, I always find you get the response that you're actually looking for when you approach it with calmness.
Yeah.
When you just say something as simple as, "Hey, that really hurt my feelings," you actually get the response of like, "I'm really sorry for that," instead of blowing up on somebody and then they blow up at you, and then next thing you know, it's 6 hours later and you're still arguing about it, and someone's sleeping on the couch.
Yeah.
You know, that's not fun.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think how to handle conflict is like a huge thing. Or to be called out. Yeah.
this has been nice.
Yeah.
It's been cool.
Yeah.
I haven't talked shop in forever.
Yeah.
It's strange to be asked questions about things you never talk about, and then you start opening your mouth, and you're like, "Oh, I guess that's how I feel about it." Okay.
Yeah. No, it's like you gotta have that too. I think of, you know, even just in doing these things when you're talking to people and it just starts like activating these parts of you that you're not aware of all the time.
Sure.
You know, even I pick Matt's brain all the time. And I'm like, okay, Matt, I'm just gonna throw all this stuff on the table,
Right.
And then you kind of help me organize this.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
And I think it's like part of the process of self-discovery through creativity. I mean, I think even just an active, intentional conversation can show you as much about how you feel and think as a different creative process.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's interesting. A lot of the sort of guys doing podcasts right now and like the intellectual dark web and whatnot are talking about just the surprising power of long form discourse that was not available to us not very long ago.
Yeah.
And it is kind of surprising that you have a lot of people putting out 1, 2, 3, 4 hour long podcast episodes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And thousands and thousands of people are listening to them.
Right.
You know, these aren't just conversations. I'm starting to come to see these as works of creativity, works of art, maybe not so different than the songs or maybe the books that we used to read.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
What helps me, I get so much out of it when I see somebody or hear somebody working through an idea or like having a back and forth. It's like it kind of like I feel like it kind of like paves some space for me to kind of like occupy something that I had never been in. You know, it's like you know, like even when you were explaining like the connection between the audience and you on stage, it's like I feel like when you were explaining that, I got to kind of step into that space as an observer, you know, and be like, oh wow, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of like almost whenever you hear that or you're in that experience again, you can kind of let yourself go into it, and you can recognize it maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of just thinking about it.
No, I think you nailed it. I think that's the idea for sure.
Like, do you ever, like, when you're on stage and you're like going, you're like, oh man, here it comes, or you feel like almost like the space opening up
Sometimes.
and you're stepping in it.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the song for sure. Yeah. I had something on my head and then I lost it, so it must not have been that important. But no, thanks for the questions. That's cool. Yeah, people. Yeah. Thanks for the questions.
Yeah,
it's good.
Well, hey, real quick, like, what's some things that you have coming up? Where are you kind of heading, or what are your thoughts? Is there anything that's kind of like you're kind of pointing towards, or that you? Or...
I mean, the next thing, like musically, is just getting a record done, another one. But I'm gonna spread it out this time. I'm just gonna be doing like a week, a month. I mean, that may change, but right now the goal is a week, a month till whenever it's done.
A week, a month of recording.
Yeah. And so I'm excited about it. It's gonna be really different. And but outside of that, I got these Glorietta shows coming up next week. I'm not sure when this will air, but 13th, 14th, and 15th in Dallas, Austin, and Houston. And then I'm taking a couple months off.
Cool.
January, February will be chill. Hanging with my gal, seeing some movies.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Man, I love you a lot.
Love you too.
I've always respected you a lot for a lot of things regarding music, but outside of that, I respect you a lot as a man, as a person who values and pursues honesty. And that's why I wanted to talk to you on this podcast. So thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming out, or whatever. You're in your room or whatever.
They could be out. They could be out in a forest naked.
That's true. That's your homework for the next episode is to go into the forest naked and run or walk. But yeah, thanks for listening. Shores of Ignorance with Michael
and Matt McCloskey.
Yeah, and thank you, David, for coming out.
No sweat.
All right, we'll see you guys. Bye. Thanks.
Side.